Come to think about this, one moment changed everything. Just 3 weeks ago, Jane Blackwood walked out of her own engagement party forever after discovering the man she planned to marry stood with his family and humiliated her sister. What nobody in that room knew was that her sister, Jenella Blackwood, was the Mafia queen controlling the most powerful networks in the city. By the end of that same event, partnerships collapsed, fortunes disappeared, and Jane left her fiancé standing beside the ruins of his family's empire. But the morning after revenge is never the end of the story. Because while Jane was trying to rebuild her future, someone else was already planning to destroy it. Jane Blackwood woke up to 43 unread messages. The terms were exactly what Han Seok said they were the night before. Full control from her no-board seats, interference clauses and performance benchmarks tied to his priorities or timeline. 200 billion, released according to her expansion schedule and no one else's. Jane had reviewed enough investment proposals in 4 years to understand what they usually looked like, what people wanted when they wrote them, and what buried in the language. This proposal didn't have any of that, which made her more careful, not less. She closed the laptop and called Jenella. "You read it," Jenella said. "Yeah," Jane said, "and it's clean. Too clean." "That's not a problem with the proposal," Jenella said. "No," Jane said. "It's a question about the man." A longer pause this time. "He knew things about my company," Jane said. "The infrastructure model, the third quarter restructure, things I didn't publish widely. He's been paying close attention for a long time, Jen." "Yes," Jenella said. "Did you know?" "Not until last night." Jane was quiet. "What do you know about him?" Jane said. "Enough," Jenella said. "He builds things slowly and they last. He doesn't make offers he doesn't mean, never in a room randomly except he chooses to." "That's not an answer." "It's the answer that matters," Jenella said. "The rest is details." Jane exhaled slowly. "I need to meet with him before I decide anything." "Then meet with him. If I don't like what I find, then you walk away," Jenella said. "And you build it slower, same as you've been doing." Jane set her coffee cup down. "David called last night," she said. "After we left." Silence on the other end of the line changed. "What did he say?" Jenella asked. "He wants to talk." "What did you say?" I didn't answer. "Good," Jenella said. "Don't." David called again that afternoon. Jane let it go to voicemail. He called a third time at 6 in the evening and left a message, apologies stacked on explanations. Jane listened to 12 seconds of it and deleted it. She didn't feel cruel about it. She felt finished. She met with Han Seok on Thursday. His office was on the 31st floor of a building with no signage at street level. The reception area was quiet, 2 people at a desk. Han Seok was already standing when she came in. He didn't begin with the proposal. Instead, he offered her tea, which she declined, and coffee, which she accepted, and then he sat across from her at a meeting table. "I have questions," Jane said. "I expected you would," he said. "Infrastructure model of my company in January. Where did you read it?" "The infrastructure journal it ran in. I've subscribed for 6 years. It wasn't a widely read piece. But the argument was sound. The way you solve the last-mile problem without breaking your supplier relationships, most people don't think about both at the same time." He steadied his eye on her. "You did." Jane watched him. "The third quarter restructure," she said. "That wasn't published," he said. "A contact who works with one of your suppliers mentioned it in passing. I asked him to say nothing further about it." "Why?" "Because it wasn't my information to have." Jane was quiet a moment. "Been watching my company for 2 years," she said. "Why?" Han Seok set down his cup. "Been looking for something for a long time," he said. "A company built by someone who understands that the way you build something is part of what it becomes. Most people don't understand that. But you do." The room was still. "That's a significant reason to write a 200 billion check investment," Jane said. "It is," he said. "I don't write ones I don't mean." "I know," Jane said. "My sister told me." Something moved in his expression, a slight shift at the corner of his mouth. "What else did your sister tell you?" "That you build things slowly and they last," Jane said. "And that you're never in a room you didn't choose to be in." Han Seok was quiet a moment. "She's accurate. She's the Mafia queen. Every intel sits on her table," he said. "She usually is," Jane said. They talked for 2 hours. About the company, few of the decisions Jane had made in year 3 when she'd had to choose between fast growth and sustainable structure, and had chosen structure, even though it cost her a partnership she'd badly wanted. Also why the last-mile problem was a values question as much as a logistics one. Finally, she talked about what she wanted the company to become in 10 years and what she absolutely refused to let it become on the way there. Han Seok listened, not waiting for his turn or building his next point while she was still speaking. At the end of the meeting, Jane stood to leave. "Give you my answer next week," she said. "Whatever time you need," he said. She was at the door when he spoke again. "Jane," she turned. "The offer has nothing to do with what happened the other night," he said. "I want you to know that. I'd been planning to reach out through your company's formal channel, but the timeline that evening was simply moved." Jane looked at him. "I know," she said. "That's part of why I'm still considering it." She left. Han Seok remained standing in the room for a moment after the door closed. Meanwhile, at the other hand, the Korina group made the front page of the business section by 7 the next morning. The headline was "Careful, Sudden Partnership Withdrawals. Port Approval Suspensions." 8 years of Eastern shipping infrastructure, all in the same paragraph. All past tense. David read it at the breakfast table. He had lost his position at the investment firm, quietly. His car lease was registered under a company name that no longer existed. The account that paid for his apartment had a bank notice he hadn't opened. He set the phone face down on the table. He thought about Jane as what she was now, the sister of the Mafia queen, backed by Han Seok Capital, about to sign a $200 billion expansion that would move her company into a different category entirely. David appeared at her office building on Friday, at the entrance, waiting. When Jane came out for her afternoon coffee run, she saw him and stopped walking. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in days. His jacket was creased. He held himself with the posture of a man bracing for something he'd been rehearsing. 5 minutes, he said. Jane looked at him. "No," she said. "Jane, David." Her voice was even. "I'm simply done with you. There's nothing to say. I know what I did was wrong. I know I should have." "You watched your mother speak about my sister," Jane said quietly. "You watched everyone in that room and you didn't say a single word. Instead, you join your mom in mocking too. You're no man at all." She tilted her head slightly. "That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. You made it in front of me." He opened his mouth. "Don't," she said. She walked around him and kept going. He came back Monday. Same spot. Different jacket, same posture of a man rehearsing. This time he had flowers. Jane walked past him without stopping and said, loud enough for the doorman to hear, "Please make a note that this person doesn't have permission to wait here." Doorman made the note. David stood on the pavement holding the flowers until a passing car drowned out whatever he said next. The second meeting with Han Seok happened the following Tuesday. She'd called his office herself that time, which he noted. She could tell, though he said nothing about it. They met at a restaurant near her company's building. They ordered food neither of them paid much attention to and talked for hours. He asked her once, carefully, about the ring. Just, "Are you all right?" Jane looked at him across the table. "Yes," she said. "I've been all right since I took it off." Han Seok nodded and didn't ask again. He told her somewhere in the second hour about a company he'd tried to build at 26 that had failed in 14 months. Not because the idea was wrong, just that he had moved faster than the foundation could hold. "What did you do?" Jane asked. "Started over," he said. "Slower." "It worked." He looked at her. "I'm still here." Jane looked down at her coffee. The corner of her mouth moved, just slightly, just enough that he noticed it. David stopped coming to the building after the 3rd week, not because he has given up, but due to the fact his mother had told him to stop. Korina had watched her son's attempts with the careful attention of someone studying a failed strategy. She had let it run because some men needed to exhaust the soft approach before they were ready to listen. Now she was ready to tell him what came next. They met in the study of the family house, the same room where Korina had made every significant decision of the last 20 years. David sat across from her, and for the first time in his life he looked smaller than the chair he was sitting in. "She won't come back," Korina said. "I know that," David said. "Do you understand why?" David's jaw tightened. "Because of what happened." "Because of that," Korina agreed. "And because that engagement party day cost us everything we built with the eastern ports." 9 years. She set her pen down on the desk. "The Tonda strike doesn't reverse decisions." "What do we do?" Korina looked at her son. "We remind them," she said quietly, "that we are not without options." David looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It means that Jane Blackwood's company is 4 years old and has no protection." "Come on, Mom. What do you mean no protection? That's Jane, the Mafia queen's sister. Her protection is extreme." Korina folded her hands on the desk. "It means that Jenella Blackwood cares more about her sister than she has ever cared about any territory or contract. And people who care that much about one thing," she paused, "can always be reached through it." Room was very quiet. "You want to go after Jane's company," David said. I want to make the Mafia queen feel what it costs to move against this family, Korina said. Jane is how we do that. David didn't answer immediately. He thought about the day at the building. The way Jane had walked past him without slowing down. The note she asked the doorman to make. Something in him had calcified in that moment. Who? He said. Korina had already written down the name. Charles Gurim operated out of 3 cities and answered to no one that Korina knew of, which was precisely why she reached out to him. He had history with the Tonda strike. Old history, the kind that doesn't fade because it isn't allowed to fade, disputes over eastern access that had been resolved in Jenella's favor years ago, in ways that Charles Gurim had not forgotten. When Korina called him with the name of Jane's company and the shape of what she wanted done, he listened without speaking. When she finished, he said, "The sister," Korina said. "Tonda's people will be watching." "Tonda's people are watching the Tonda strike," Korina said. "Not a 4-year-old company run by a woman who builds supply chains." A pause. "Send me the company details," Charles Gurim said. Korina sent them within the hour. What she didn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that Han Siok's network had a longer reach in certain specific sectors, and one of those sectors was Charles Gurim. The call came to Han Siok's office on a Wednesday morning. He was in the middle of a review when his head of intelligence, a man named Yonka, appeared in the doorway with an expression that meant the review was over. Charles Gurim made contact with someone near Blackwood Supply 2 days ago, Park Yonka said. Han Siok set down his pen. Jane Blackwood's company, Yonka said. He's been sent her operational structure, supplier contracts, and key personnel. Han Siok was already standing. "Where did this come from?" he said. "Korina," Yonka said. Han Siok was quiet for 2 seconds. "What's the timeline?" he said. "We think they move within days, a coordinated pull on her 3 main supplier contracts, the same move at the same time so she can't shore up one before the others fall." Park Yonka paused. "It wouldn't kill the company, but it would wound it badly enough that she'd need outside help, which she would then be in no position to negotiate," Yonka said. Han Siok walked slowly to the window. He made 2 calls in the next 5 minutes. First was a call to the Jenella Mafia queen. "Korina set Charles Gurim to destroy your sister company." Jenella replied immediately with anger. "How dare those losers make an attempt on my sister company?" "I need you to handle this situation immediately, understood?" "Yes," Han Siok said. By the end of the second call, 3 things had been put into motion that Charles Gurim would not be able to see coming. Then finally he called Jane. "Han Siok," she said. Her voice was alert immediately. She could hear something in his. "Need you to come to my office," he said. "Today, now if you can." A brief pause. "Is everything okay?" "I'll explain when you're here," he said. "I need to see you in person." Jane was in the car inside of 15 minutes. She arrived to Han Siok and sat across from him. Han Siok told her everything: Korina, Charles Gurim, the operational structure that had been handed over, the shape of what they intended. He spoke clearly without softening it, and he watched her face gone still. "Do you know all of this?" she said. "Had people monitoring activity near your company since the engagement party," he said. Jane looked at him. "Since the engagement party?" "That's 3 weeks and few days ago," he said. Han Siok. She held his gaze. "We hadn't even agreed to the investment yet." He didn't look away. "No," he said. "We hadn't." The room was very still. Jane understood what he wasn't saying. She sat with it for a moment. "What have you already done?" she said. 3 of Charles Gurim's contacts have been redirected," he said. "The coordinated pull won't happen the way they planned it. But Korina will find out the plan failed, and when she does, she'll try something else, which means this isn't over." "What does something else look like?" "I don't know yet," he said. "Which is why I'm telling you now. You need to know what's coming." "Is my sister aware of this?" she said. "Your sister has her own resources," Han Siok said. "I called her and she implied I handle the situation before any further hit." He paused. "But I wanted you to hear it from me first," Jane said. He was quiet for a moment. "It's your company. And because I'm not in the habit of making decisions about someone's life without telling them." Jane looked at him, at the steadiness of him, 3 weeks of watching. Because she was the thing he'd decided mattered, she didn't say anything for a long moment. "Thank you," she said finally. "Thank me," he said. "I should have told you I was monitoring the situation earlier. I made that decision without asking you." "You also moved to protect my company," Jane said. "Before there was an investment to protect." She held his gaze. "That's not nothing, Han Siok." Something settled in his expression. "No," he said. "It's not nothing." Jenella got a call again from Han Siok at 2:14 in the afternoon. She listened without a word, asked 3 questions, and ended the call. Then she sat in her office on for a few minutes and then picked up her phone. And make a one call, Sung-jin answered before it had finished ringing once. Charles Gurim, Jenella said. I heard, Sung-jin said, and Korina. I gave her a clean exit, Jenella said. I took what needed taking and I left the rest. That was a courtesy. Used it to come after Jane. I know, Sung-jin said. Find out what's left of her business, Jenella said. All of it, not just what was already touched, but this time everything. Her feel the street reaching out to her because that's where she belonged, Sung-jin understood. And David, Jenella recalled the engagement party. David watching his mother perform her cruelty, turning back to his drink, saying nothing except calling her a nobody. Then, 3 weeks later, aligning with someone like Charles Gurim against a woman whose only offense was being her sister. David, Jenella said. As for him, handle him widely. Korina found out the plan had failed. Her contact delivered the news. 3 supplier contacts redirected. The coordinated pull dismantled. No damage was reached at the target. Korina sat in her study and stared at the wall. She had underestimated someone. The question was who? The Tonda strike hadn't moved. She was almost certain. Jenella operated in a specific way, and this didn't match the pattern. The answer arrived 20 minutes later when her financial director called to tell her that 2 of her remaining investment streams had been frozen. Not by Tonda, by Han Siok Capital. Korina sat with that information. Han Siok Capital. She had never moved against Han Siok, no reason to. She hadn't even known he had a connection to Jane Blackwood before last week. And yet here he was in her accounts. Her phone rang again. It was her lawyer. Each call was short and meant same thing. Korina almost had a heart attack. Oh, please, this can be happening again. That was the last of what was left of this family to survive. By 5 o'clock, David was barely able to stand in the doorway. His face has swollen and cloth torn with bruises on his body, all from the beating of men ordered to handle him. Mother, he said. Korina turned around and was shocked to see him that way. What happened to you, she said. I was attacked and beaten up by Sung-jin men. Mom, we're doomed for life. I told you not to, he said. I was the one who spoke, Korina said. You were the one who stood there and let it happen to the woman you were supposed to marry. She didn't leave because of me, David. She left because of you. Jane found Jenella at the yard that evening. She was reviewing something on a tablet when Jane's car pulled in. Jenella looked up as Jane stepped out of the car. The evening wind moved lightly through the shipping yard, containers stacked in endless rows, distant machinery humming somewhere near the docks. Jane walked toward her sister slowly. You look like you're thinking too hard again, Jenella said. Jane let out the faintest breath of a laugh and leaned beside the table. Han Siok stopped the attack before it reached me, she said quietly. Yes, started protecting the company before I even agreed to work with him. Jenella glanced at her sister. Yes, she said again. Jane was silent for a moment. Then, why? Jenella looked back down at the tablet in her hand. You really need me to answer that? Jane didn't speak. Jenella finally set the tablet aside and faced her fully. That man has been having feelings for you for a very long time, she said calmly. He just happens to be disciplined enough not to call it that until he knows what to do with it. The words settled quietly between them. Jane looked out across the yard. And for the first time since the engagement party, the future didn't feel exhausting. A month later, Jane signed the investment agreement. 3 months after that, Blackwood Supply opened its first eastern expansion route under Han Siok Capital's backing. The industry called it one of the most strategic partnerships of the decade. And somewhere between late meetings, quiet dinners, shared flights, and conversations that stretched long past midnight, Jane stopped waiting for Han Siok to leave. And Han Siok, who had spent most of his life trusting very little, discovered that peace could sound like someone's voice across a room asking if he'd eaten yet. Neither of them said the word love first. They simply built their way toward it. Winter arrived slowly that year. Jane visited Han Siok. That evening she found him standing on the balcony of his house, the city lit beneath him in silver and gold. You disappeared from dinner, she said as she walked toward him. I needed a minute to think. The corner of his mouth moved slightly. Jane stepped beside him, shoulder brushing his. About what? She asked, Han Siok a glimpse look at the skyline before answering. I spent a long time believing that if something mattered to you, you protected it quietly. Jane turned her head slightly toward him, and now I think some things should be said aloud. Things aloud like? Jane asked. Han Seok reached into his coat pocket and took out a box ring. Jane's breath caught very slightly when she saw the ring box. Han Seok looked at her with the same steadiness he had looked at her from the very beginning. "I don't know how to do this carelessly," he said quietly, "so I'll do it honestly instead." Jane felt her chest. "You are the best thing that has ever entered my life, Jane." He kept his eyes on her. "And every day after meeting you became a day I wanted to keep. I don't just want to stand beside you while you build your future," he said. "I want to be part of it. Will you, Jane Blackwood, marry me?" Jane looked at him for a long moment, at the man who had watched quietly, protected carefully, and then loved patiently, and Jane smiled. "Yes, I will marry you, Han Seok." Relief and happiness moving visibly across his face as he slid the ring onto her hand. Jane laughed softly through tears she hadn't realized were there. Then Han Seok pulled her gently against him, holding her like something precious and finally his. "I still remain Charles, the writer and director of Secret Mafia Love." See you all in the next one, and if you're just watching this episode 2 for the first time without episode 1, I recommend you check the description for the episode 1 link.